The smell of burnt coffee and stale grease hit me as I pushed open the rusty door of Joe's diner. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting an unflattering glow on the cracked vinyl booths and chipped Formica countertops. This was my inheritance. A failing diner on the outskirts of Boston, while my brother Marcus got the family fortune. I'm Olivia Carter, and this was supposed to be the worst day of my life. At least that's what my family thought. Well, what do you think of your inheritance? My father's smirk was evident as he gestured around the empty diner. Joe's been trying to sell this place for years. Couldn't find a buyer, so we got it for practically nothing. I ran my hand along the counter, years of grease and memories embedded in its surface. My mother stood near the entrance, designer purse clutched tightly as if the mere act of being here might somehow taint her carefully curated image. Of course, Marcus will be getting the bulk of the estate, she added, examining her manicured nails. He has the business acumen to handle it properly. The companies, the properties, the investments, about $8 million total. He'll know what to do with it. I nodded slowly, still taking in every detail of the diner. Where they saw peeling paint and broken dreams, I saw potential. They didn't know about my culinary degree from Le Cordon Bleu, or my MBA from Harvard. They had no idea I'd spent the last 5 years managing some of the most successful restaurants in New York City. It's perfect, I said quietly. My father's smirk faltered. This wasn't the reaction he'd expected. Perfect? Olivia, it's a failing business. The equipment is ancient, the books are a mess. I know, I interrupted, moving behind the counter to examine the ancient coffee maker. That's what makes it perfect. My mother sighed dramatically. Darling, don't be difficult. We're giving you a chance to prove yourself. If you can somehow make this place profitable, maybe then we can discuss involving you in the family's real business ventures. I had to bite back a laugh. They had no idea that while Marcus was busy flaunting his trust fund at country clubs, I'd been building connections with some of the biggest names in the restaurant industry. They didn't know about the investors who'd been begging to back my first solo venture. When can I take possession? I asked, ignoring their condescending looks. My father pulled out a thick envelope. The papers are all here. Joe's happy to hand over the keys immediately. But Olivia, he paused, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown so familiar with. Don't expect any help from us when this fails. You're on your own. I took the envelope, my fingers brushing against the worn paper. That's all I've ever been, Dad. They left shortly after, my mother's heels clicking against the cracked linoleum, my father's expensive cologne lingering in the musty air. As soon as their Mercedes disappeared around the corner, I pulled out my phone. Sarah? It's Olivia. Remember that business plan we discussed? I found the perfect location. Get the team together. It's time. I spent that night in the diner, sitting in one of the worn booths, my laptop illuminating the darkness. Financial projections, renovation plans, and marketing strategies filled my screen. Where my family saw a worthless inheritance, I saw the first location of what would become the most innovative restaurant chain in New England. My brother Marcus might have gotten $8 million, but what I got was something far more valuable, an opportunity. And I was going to make them regret underestimating me. The next morning, as the sun rose over Boston, I stood in front of Joe's diner, my diner, and smiled. The renovation crew would arrive in an hour. The health inspectors were scheduled for next week. My team of chefs would start testing recipes in 10 days. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Heard about the diner. Tough break, sis. Let me know if you need a loan when it fails. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I pushed open the door, the bell chiming one last time before everything would change. The transformation was about to begin, and with it, my revenge served on a silver platter. Little did they know, this failing diner was about to become the cornerstone of an empire. And when they finally realized their mistake, it would be too late to claim a seat at my table. 6 months later, the transformation was complete. Joe's diner was gone, replaced by the local kitchen, a modern farm-to-table restaurant that perfectly balanced sophistication with comfort. The peeling linoleum had given way to reclaimed hardwood floors, the flickering fluorescence replaced by warm industrial lighting that cast a golden glow over copper-top tables. But the real magic wasn't in the decor. It was in the kitchen. "Order up," called Miguel, my head chef, as he placed another perfectly plated dish on the pass. The restaurant was packed, as it had been every night since our opening 2 weeks ago. Food critics from Boston's top publications had been singing our praises, particularly about our innovative take on classic comfort food. I stood at the host station watching the satisfied smiles of our guests, when Sarah, my business partner and best friend from culinary school, rushed up to me, tablet in hand. "Olivia, you need to see this," she said, her eyes bright with excitement. "Boston Magazine just posted their review online. We got 5 stars." I scanned the article, my heart swelling with pride. The local kitchen transforms comfort food into culinary art. Chef Carter's vision breathes new life into classic American cuisine. The first location of what we hope will become a growing empire. Sarah squeezed my arm. And that's not all. 3 different restaurant groups have reached out about potential partnerships. People are noticing. Liv. I handed back the tablet, straightening my blazer. Have they really not figured it out yet? Sarah shook her head. Your family? Oh, they still think you're struggling with a failing diner. Your brother was at the country club last week, telling everyone how you'd probably come begging for help soon. I smiled, remembering the careful steps I'd taken to keep my success hidden. The restaurant was registered under a corporation name, not my own. Press releases used my title rather than my full name. Even our website showed only an artistic photo of my hands plating a dish, no headshot. "Well, they're about to find out," I said, checking my watch. "The investor meeting is tomorrow." The next morning, I stood in our private dining room, now converted into a meeting space. Around the table sat some of the most influential names in the restaurant industry: CEOs, investors, and food critics. They weren't here for a failing diner. They were here because the local kitchen had become the hottest restaurant concept in New England. "The numbers speak for themselves," I said, clicking to the next slide. "In just 2 weeks, we've generated more revenue than Joe's Diner did in its final year. Our reservation list is booked 3 months out. And this is just the beginning." James Parker, CEO of one of the largest restaurant groups in the country, leaned forward. "Your expansion plan is ambitious. 10 locations in 2 years. I nodded confidently. "We've already secured 3 additional locations. The second restaurant opens in Providence next month, followed by Portland and Hartford. By year's end, the local kitchen will be the fastest-growing premium casual dining concept in New England." The meeting continued, each slide revealing more of my carefully crafted plan. By the time I finished, the room was buzzing with excitement. Hands shot up, checkbooks came out, everyone wanting a piece of what they knew would be a massive success. That's when the door opened. Marcus walked in, his expensive suit and typical smug expression firmly in place. Behind him, my parents hesitated in the doorway, their faces a mix of confusion and dawning realization. "Sorry I'm late," Marcus announced, clearly not recognizing the caliber of people in the room. "When I heard there was an investor meeting about some hot new restaurant chain, I had to check it out. Always looking for new opportunities to expand my portfolio." The room fell silent. James Parker raised an eyebrow at me. "You know this gentleman, Chef Carter?" I smiled, savoring the moment. "Yes, Mr. Parker. This is my brother Marcus. The one I mentioned who inherited $8 million while I got a failing diner." Marcus's smug expression faltered as he finally looked at me. Really looked at me, standing at the head of the table, surrounded by industry titans. "Olivia, what is this?" "This," I gestured around the beautifully renovated space, "is the local kitchen. My restaurant. The first of many. And these," I nodded to the people around the table, "are my investors." Well, potential investors. We're actually in the middle of discussing a $50 million expansion plan. My mother gasped. My father's face had turned an interesting shade of red. Marcus just stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Now," I continued, turning back to the group, as I was saying about our projected growth. "Wait," Marcus interrupted, finally finding his voice. "Dad, we should invest. If Olivia's restaurant is worth that much." "I'm afraid," I cut him off smoothly, "we're not accepting family investments at this time. Or ever, actually. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a meeting to finish." The security guard I'd stationed outside gently but firmly escorted them out. Through the glass walls, I watched them stand in the parking lot, staring at the restaurant, my restaurant, as if seeing it for the first time. James Parker chuckled. "Well, Chef Carter, I think I speak for everyone here when I say we're even more impressed now. Not just with your business acumen but with your, shall we say, ability to handle difficult situations. I returned to my presentation, but not before catching a glimpse of my family getting into their car. They thought they'd saddled me with a worthless inheritance. Instead, they'd given me exactly what I needed to build my empire. And this was just the beginning. The news of my success spread through the family like wildfire. Within days, my phone was flooded with messages from relatives who had previously ignored my existence. Cousins who'd smirked at my little diner were now sending LinkedIn requests. Aunts and uncles who'd sided with my parents suddenly remembered they'd always believed in me. But the most interesting reactions came from my immediate family. Marcus tried first. He showed up at the local kitchen during lunch rush, wearing his most expensive suit, carrying a leather portfolio filled with investment opportunities. "Come on, Olivia," he said, sliding into my office chair uninvited. "We're family. Think about the potential if we combine my capital with your, whatever this is." He gestured vaguely around my office. "I've got connections, influence." "You mean Dad's connections?" I interrupted, not looking up from my laptop. "Dad's influence? What's the difference?" He shrugged. "The point is we could." "Marcus," I finally looked at him, "what's the current prime rate?" He blinked. "What?" "The prime rate. Basic business knowledge." "What is it?" His face flushed. "That's what accountants are for." "And what was your company's ROI last quarter?" "Look," he stood up, straightening his tie defensively, "I don't have to prove myself to you. I'm the one with the real inheritance." I smiled. "And what have you done with it? Besides buy a new Mercedes and invest in that failing crypto scheme?" His face turned red. "How did you?" "I have my own connections now, Marcus. Real ones. And they tell me you've already lost half of your inheritance." He stormed out, but not before I caught the flash of fear in his eyes. He knew I was right. My parents tried next. They were subtler, playing the guilt card they'd perfected over years of manipulation. "We always knew you had potential," Mom said over coffee at her country club. She'd invited me, presumably to show off her newly successful daughter to her friends. "We just wanted to motivate you. By giving me a failing business while Marcus got millions?" She waved her hand dismissively. "You clearly didn't need the money. Look how well you've done on your own." "That's not the point, Mom." "Well, what is the point?" Dad cut in. He'd been quiet until now, watching me with calculating eyes. "You've proven yourself. Now it's time to bring it all back to the family. We should consolidate our businesses, present a united front." I stirred my coffee slowly. "Tell me, Dad, how's Marcus's portion of the inheritance doing?" His jaw tightened. They knew. Of course they knew. Marcus had lost nearly $4 million in bad investments and risky ventures. That's why they were here, trying to get their hooks into my success. "Everyone makes mistakes," Mom said quickly. "That's why family is so important. We support each other. Like you supported me?" "Olivia," Dad leaned forward, his voice dropping to that authoritative tone he'd used throughout my childhood. "You have a responsibility to this family. Your brother needs—" "No," I cut him off. "What my brother needs is to learn the same lesson I did. Success isn't inherited, it's earned." I stood up, dropping my napkin on the table. "The local kitchen is opening its 10th location next month. We're projecting over $100 million in revenue this year. And none of it belongs to this family." "You ungrateful," Dad started, but I held up my hand. "I've got a meeting with my investors. Real investors. People who saw my worth before they knew my name." I walked out of the country club, leaving them with their cold coffee and colder realization that they'd lost any chance of controlling me. 1 year later, I stood on stage at the National Restaurant Association's annual conference, accepting the award for Restaurateur of the Year. The local kitchen had expanded to 25 locations across New England, with plans to go national. From the podium, I could see my team, Sarah, Miguel, and all the others who'd believed in my vision from the start. They weren't just employees, they were my real family. "Success," I said into the microphone, "isn't about what you're given. It's about what you build. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as disappointments. And sometimes—" I paused, catching sight of my parents and Marcus slipping into the back of the ballroom. "The people who believe in you least are the ones who motivate you most." The audience applauded, but I wasn't finished. "To everyone who's been told they're not enough, who's been given the scraps while others feast, who's been underestimated and overlooked. Success is the best revenge. But it's not about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Later that evening at the reception, Marcus approached me one last time. He looked older, tired. The weight of squandered millions evident in the bags under his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have seen it. Your potential. Your drive." I handed him a business card. "The local kitchen is always hiring. Starting positions begin at the dish station. If you want to learn what real business looks like, you can start there." He stared at the card for a long moment before pocketing it. We both knew he wouldn't take the offer, but the message was clear. Success couldn't be inherited. My parents stayed in their corner, watching as industry leaders and celebrities came to congratulate me. They saw what they'd thrown away. Not just an $8 million inheritance, but a daughter who had turned a failing diner into a $100 million empire. That night I returned to where it all began. The original local kitchen transformed from Joe's Diner. Sitting in the same booth where I'd planned my empire a year ago, I opened my laptop. The expansion plans for the West Coast glowed on the screen. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Do you really mean it? About the dish station?" I smiled, thinking of my own journey. Maybe there was hope for him after all. "Yes," I typed back. 6 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising so high that those who doubted you have no choice but to look up and wonder what else they might have missed. And as for that failing diner they thought would break me, it turned out to be the best inheritance I could have asked for. Because sometimes rock bottom is the strongest foundation for building an empire.